It's not unusual to find that shareholders believe they have greater flexibility to deal with their shares than is the case. They can also mistakenly believe they have rights over other shares in the company. So, let's say a shareholder has gifted some shares to their spouse and they're now in the process of getting divorced. Can our spouse get their shares back?
Starting point here is kind of no, you've given away your shares, and whoever you've given them to, they get to decide what they want to do with them, including whether they want to give them back. Now, you can put rules in place here that deal with what should happen in those circumstances, and it's quite typical to see that you would expect the shares to go back to those involved in the business more on a day-to-day basis, and you can put rules in place that do that. And that can have an advantage both for the couple who are separating in that there are rules in place that deal with that scenario, but it can also help other shareholders in the company who might not want to effectively be bought into someone else's divorce, which is exactly what can happen if you haven't got suitable rules in place.
Okay, so what if the same shareholder has given some shares to an employee and that employee has just given in their notice and we know they're going to a competitor? So surely we can get those shares back.
This is a scenario where, yeah, you would think that you would be able to get your shares back, but unfortunately, again, if you haven't actually documented anything, then you can't. It's not a default rule that you can get them back, whilst it is something that is quite typical to see. Again, the challenge here is often, whilst it might be fairly simple to agree a position that yes, you would want to get the shares back, you need to think about how that might actually work and some of the detail of those sorts of provisions. Who's going to buy the shares? Is it going to be the company? Is it the other shareholders? What are they going to pay for them? How's that process going to work? And I think sometimes that's really where people need to give a bit more thought and of what they'd want to happen and expect to happen.
Okay, so now our shareholder, he's planning to change his will in view of his divorce. He thinks he can at least be free to do whatever he likes with his own shares. Do we have any more bad news for him?
Fortunately we do, and again this is a scenario that I think is really surprising to a lot of people, is that actually there can be rules in your company documents that mean you can't do what you'd expect to do with your shares in your will. And we see this sometimes when we're actually dealing with the administration of an estate. And it might be that there are rules in place in the company documents that effectively mean that other people have a right to block or to refuse a certain transfer to happen, which might be what you'd intended in your will. So for example, it might be that the other shareholders have a right to buy your shares rather than them to pass to someone under your will. Or it might be that the directors have a right just to refuse to do the transfer altogether. Understanding what those rules are and how they might affect you is really important when you're thinking about your will. And making sure that the documents work together is crucial so that what you want to happen does and can happen.
We can address these and other situations as part of a review of the company's articles and shareholders agreement. The problem in our scenario was that the shareholder didn't understand the rules that applied until it was too late. With some proper planning, it is possible to put new arrangements in place before the event to achieve what shareholders want and expect to happen.